Mike.
I was gonna
Bogo,
sink
too.
half of
So
it down in the mud.
he didn't say anything.
So all you're seeing is half of the arch.
So let me ask you this, if we, well, you have to do that kind of handrails or safety guards.
Okay, if everyone could take their seat.
Yes, yeah, we would have to.
I'd like to call the Committee of the Whole meeting to order. The first item on the agenda is approval of the Committee of the Whole meeting minutes of March 18th. Does anybody have any modifications, questions, concerns about the minutes? If not, is that a concern?
Really concerned.
If not, then would someone like to make a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay, the minutes are passed. Second item on the agenda is an ordinance to accept a $1,000 donation from the Ravenna United Way Fund for the Fire Department. And this is from the Public Health and Safety Committee. Ms. Michael?
Yes, this is the ordinance to accept the $1,000 donation. There is no match required. This was just a generous donation from the Ravenna United Fund for the fire department in memory of Mr. Hartung. And again, we'd like to say thank you for that donation, and we are appreciative of that.
Okay, any questions? What is the pleasure of the committee?
Ordinance.
Third item on the agenda is a similar ordinance to accept a $1,000 donation from the Ravenna United Fund for the Police Department. Ms. Michael?
And that goes again with the second ordinance. This also is a donation in memory of Mr. Hartung. There's no match. It is a donation, and again, thank you for the donation for the police department.
Okay. What is the pleasure of the council?
Ordinance.
Fourth item on the agenda, ordinance appropriating $23,000 to replace old street signs. This is from the Streets and Sidewalks Committee. Mr. Harper?
Yeah, these are signs that are deemed no longer usable. They've lost their reflectivity. They just serve their purpose and need to be replaced for safety reasons.
I believe we got a list of all the different types of signs in our last committee meeting. Questions?
Are there any signs not being replaced? That's an extensive list.
That is a big list.
Yeah.
List, yeah.
Okay, what is the pleasure of council?
Ordinance.
Ordinance.
Next item on the agenda is an ordinance appropriating $7,500 to renew an, wait, I missed one, I'm
Skip
sorry.
one.
Ordinance authorizing the installation of a no turn on red sign at North Scranton and Main Street. Mr. Harper?
Yeah, this is to help alleviate issues in the morning and afternoon based on extra traffic during school times. Again, this will just help make that intersection a little bit safer.
Any questions? Pleasure of council?
Ordinance.
Ordinance.
Next item is ordinance appropriating $7,500 to renew an agreement with the Portage Soil and Water. Now, this is, oh, by the way, can we get a motion to excuse Mr. Moscom for tonight's meeting?
So
I'll make-
moved.
Any second?
Second.
Those okay with that? Say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed?
No.
Okay. Mr. Moscom is not here tonight. He did inform me he was not going to be able to make it. Mr. Finney, can you enlighten us on this item?
So this is an agreement that we have with Portage County Soil and Water to perform educational services for a 5-year period. They recently did, I think it's September of last year, they did a rain barrel workshop.
Oh, okay.
That was one of the educational components to it. And other things that they've done over the years.
Okay. Questions and concern? I know we talked about this last week at the committee meeting. What is the pleasure of the council?
Ordinance.
Next item on the agenda is an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract with Hemling Excavating for water repair. Mr. Finney?
Yeah, this was also to appropriate the money from the water fund. So there's a section of water pipe on Linden Street, just south of Cedar. The road has had multiple repairs. Before we pave that section, we want to replace the water line.
Okay. Pleasure of the council.
Ordinance.
And I assume this is similar to the previous item. An ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract with Hemling Excavating for sewer repair. Same thing?
Yes, but this is on Avon Court.
Oh, okay.
There's an odd section of sewer pipe that's not draining properly. And this was a little bit longer section. We do have the money appropriated, but to sign a contract with the mayor, we have an ordinance necessary.
Questions or concerns?
And we did solicit bids from 5 other contractors. We received, I think, 2 return bids.
And you selected one of those two?
Well, Helmling was the one that submitted the most reasonable bid. I think there was one other one that was way out there,
Okay.
cost-wise.
Pleasure of council.
Ordinance.
Next item is an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract for Foxwood Sanitary Extension. This is an item we've been discussing for years about extending that,
Yes, since 2014.
2014, even before my time.
Yeah, this is 100% funded.
Right.
We will also submit an invoice for our time and our project management, and we will go back a couple years and try to get reimbursed for the time that we've spent on it also.
Oh,
And the
okay, I
com-
didn't know
the-
that.
The contractor, we're not 100% sure that they'll fund it, but we're gonna try.
Yeah.
The contractor we've chosen is Z-Tech. Board of Control also chose them. We have not worked with them before, but the reference is checked out.
Okay. Questions from council? Pleasure of council.
Ordinance.
The next item on the agenda is an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into agreement for the summer food program. This is an annual program that we work with CAC to provide food at City Park for disadvantaged children and adults with disabilities. This is something we've done every year as long as I can remember.
Yeah, and there's no
No
cost
cost
to the city
to the
for
city.
this either, and anybody that's hungry can use the benefit of this. So it's not just for the kids that are going to summer camp, it is for any child or adult that shows up and decides they are hungry, they're able to get a free lunch and breakfast.
Any other comments or concerns? What is the pleasure of council?
Ordinance.
The next item, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to apply for and accept 2 Celebrate Portage grants. Now, this kind of hit us pretty quickly. If you recall, I did send out an email last week that these grants were available. Also, Judy Watkins from Parks and Rec became aware of them. And I got a little bit confused when she sent in her request. I thought it was for our 225th celebration. She called it the summer celebration, which apparently is a separate program that she's administered with the library. So I applied for both, just on the hope that we'd get one of them. And although I don't know that we've gotten any formal response, I did talk to Todd Peets last Wednesday, and he informed me that both were approved for $500 each.
That's great.
So this is just a formality to accept. It says apply, but we've already applied for them. Accept the 2 $500 grants.
Yep. I'm
Okay.
all for it.
Question?
Yeah.
And
What
there's
is-
no match, so it's
No,
just
there's no
accepting the
match.
money.
What is the pleasure of council?
Ordinance.
All right, the next item is an ordinance approving the 2023 codified ordinance updates. This is, for those of you, we should have brought in for show and tell, the big binder that has all our code of ordinances in them. I don't know if any of you on council still have that. I see it. So make sure you check in with Chelsea when we get those updates to interfile them with all the other pages that you have in your binder. So this is just to approve those yearly. We get the paper yearly, but I think our online ordinance is updated twice a year. Questions? What is the pleasure of council?
Ordinance.
Okay, the next, excuse me, the next item is an ordinance authorizing a moratorium on new adult use cannabis dispensaries. So we talked about this, we've been talking about adult use cannabis for a number of months now in the planning committee. And I don't remember exactly when I crafted this moratorium. Actually, it was with the help of some artificial intelligence, to tell you the truth. And by the way, just as a pitch, there's no cheating involved. You know, artificial intelligence is a tool we can all benefit from, right? So, and I encourage you to use it when it comes in handy. Because it took, I think, about 10 seconds after I typed in a prompt to come up with. And I changed a little bit of, because we have a little more different conventions for how we write our ordinances. So the updated, I think we sent, did we send out the updated one? Okay, if not, we'll have the updated ordinance, but you've seen the prior one, the draft one already, before our May meeting. So now, the moratorium basically has two components. One is to prevent any new adult use cannabis dispensaries, that is to say, other than the medical marijuana dispensary that already exists in Ravenna, from starting up for a year. The moratorium is listed for a year. As you all know, the state is still debating about how to roll out the rules. The current plan by the Division of Cannabis Control is to start awarding dual licenses for existing medical marijuana dispensaries in June. And then hopefully, by the time they start doing that, some of these facilities, maybe even ours, will be up and running by late summer or early fall. What we want to do is prevent any somehow sideways addition of some other dispensary from suddenly showing up. The second component is putting a moratorium on any dispensary, including our current medical marijuana dispensary, from setting up shop in the central business district downtown. Now, I know that was a debatable point, so if anybody wants to talk about that component or take it out, we can think about it. The major concern some of us have has to do with parking. And it's kind of a moot point anyway, because you know we had a presentation from Supergood at our committee meeting, and they indicated they have no intention of moving their facility into the central business district anyway. In fact, they don't really plan on moving from where they are. So how do people feel about the moratorium? Before we get to the ordinance, I want to see how council feels about this.
Go ahead.
I feel like within this year, we have the opportunity to really keep an eye on the existing facility to see how much traffic is impacted, so that at the end of the year, we can look at that to see if parking's the issue with the central district, then, and it's not an issue, then maybe I would consider taking that out.
Okay.
Yeah, I feel it's important that we at least do something like the other communities and be proactive instead of reactive, and especially having the planning commission, suggest to us that they had discussion and talked about it. I think that is huge. Listening to their advice as well and taking all of that in consideration. I've been an advocate of holding off until we exactly know what is coming, because again, I get tired of other communities always seeming to, have moratoriums, but it just seems like it seems more difficult at times to get them. And I'm happy that this is actually happening, because this is a new process. It's not saying we're against it. I am not against medical marijuana. If it could help somebody, who am I to say that, they can't have it? But again, I caution the amount that could come, especially in our downtown. I think there's just a lot of things that we need to be very cautious over. So that's my opinion.
And I'm glad you brought up the point that this is also an initiative that the Planning Commission brought to us, because we had asked them for some input on this issue.
Would like a clarification on the first clause where it says establishing a one-year moratorium on new adult use. If Supergood gets approved for recreational or adult use, are they considered a new dispensary? Or do they automatically
Well, I think,
Can
isn't the
pres-
next, I don't have,
Well, yeah, and you did say that the second clause was to keep the existing medical marijuana from moving into the central business district. I get,
doesn't it also exempt Supergood? It doesn't mention their name, but does it not exempt them in the first clause from?
no, I'm sorry, I'm looking at the tracking sheet rather than the ordinance.
Yeah, I'm having trouble pulling it up too for some reason.
Shall not apply to existing medical marijuana as established prior to the effective date.
So so Supergood would be safe.
To open adult use,
Yes.
because it shall not apply to existing medical marijuana.
And sell both medical marijuana and adult use cannabis.
And how-
We can work on the wording. too.
No, I'm just asking, and how did we arrive at 1 year and not 6 months or 2 years or 18 months? What was the rationale for 1 year?
That
That's
was
what,
with the
that's
other
what
communities.
ChatGPT told me.
Okay.
We could change that.
I-
And by the way,
I think the other communities were doing 1 year too.
well, yeah, but, and the other thing is, because I know there's a debate and it's been in the paper that Kent has their moratorium, and there are a lot of people who aren't too happy about that. But we can always rescind the moratorium at any point. And if we want to change the time period, we can do that too.
No, I just was curious if there was some rationale
I
behind the
think,
date.
I think the year is probably the traditional length of a moratorium, so,
And we're depending on the state to have finalized their rules by that time?
yeah.
Okay.
And we can always renew it or extend it or whatever you want to call it. Okay.
Sorry, that's my blood sugar alarm. Do you need something?
Are you okay?
Kelpie has candy, I think.
Yeah, I'll be okay. All right,
Could you state your name for the record?
Carmen Lodato, 222 Madison Street, Ravenna. So first of all, I'd like to thank council for kicking this over to Planning Commission because should one of these businesses come to the city, we're going to be stop number one. When this came to planning, because I was a very strong proponent of issue 2, was to look at what other cities were doing and kind of build off of that and see how it could be integrated into Ravenna. But what I kept finding over and over again was, first of all, I couldn't find one single example in the state of Ohio where a planning commission discussed or dealt with it. I kept finding moratorium after moratorium, and it seemed to be the reasoning was, we don't know what's coming from the state. I feel like this moratorium is really important because should a business come to the city, without the moratorium, we're gonna be sitting there on planning commission trying in a very ad hoc way, coming up with how we're going to deal with it, what rules we're gonna set and where they could be. And so far, in my experience over the past few years on planning, is when we are put in a position like that, we look back, well, hindsight's 20/20, that we would have maybe done things differently. One thing I think that's important to think about, you know, from the city perspective, and I know Mayor Seaman brought this to our attention at the last planning meeting, is that cities don't benefit from this in any way. All of the money, we can't charge permitting fees or anything.
There can be some tax revenue.
I mean, yeah,
Yeah, I don't know how much.
yeah, not much because payroll tax is gonna be next to nothing for a cashier jockeying,
I think
In
there's a
the store.
sales tax, though, that's shared with the locality. I'm not positive, but I think so.
I do believe you're right, the sales tax on it.
I thought that I read in that portion that is not going to be going to cities.
Could be.
It's House Bill 86, and right now, the current law has a 10% excise tax on all sales. 36% of that's supposed to go to the municipality that it's located in. However, this new House bill that's being proposed is gonna take all that out And the money's all, they're gonna up the tax to 15%, but not give the municipalities that are housing these places any of the money.
Well, but that's a proposed bill. We
That's
haven't,
the proposed bill, but for what I understand, it's passed the House and the Senate already, and it's gone to the governor's desk.
really?
Yeah.
I didn't know
All the money's gonna go into drug counseling programs, the 988 program, and all sorts of other programs like that. There's gonna be a little bit of money that's gonna go in the GRF, which is the local government formula, which will be given broadly to all governments, but it's a very small amount, it's only the leftover amount, and it's nowhere close to the 36% that's in the current law, so I don't know what they're doing to the State House, but it's gonna hurt us on that, because the original law was gonna put a lot of money in our pocketbook, now it's not.
Thank you, Carter.
That's what I thought the last I heard was when
And
I looked into
Brian?
that.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's something to consider because even if you take out the parking and every other issue that's been discussed, is that the existence of any more than what we have or multiple is gonna require more police surveillance. It's gonna be a strain on city resources, and we're really not gonna get any benefit of it as a city, where there's not gonna, and I hate saying that because I was such a champion of issue 2, and I have no idea why they're making these types of changes to it, but thank you for bringing that up, because the fact that they still keep changing stuff is exactly why Planning Commission felt this was the best move right now, because they do keep changing things and major things too. So, until that's all finalized at the state, and God only knows when that's gonna be, it might even be a year.
Could be.
I think that this is the safest move, so I just wanted to give some background where, how we got to that place, because when we met as a planning commission, and we talked about this, we weren't set out to do a moratorium. We were set out to create rules and have that discussion, and this is just how we got to this place. So,
Yeah, and by the way, I mean, this isn't where it ends. This may be where it begins, and it's likely council will continue to seek help from the planning commission. There are versions of new ordinances for adult use cannabis that you guys have seen, and with the ever-changing state of affairs down at Columbus, it could be that we'll have to tweak that many times. So thank you for your work on the planning commission and for your support for the moratorium.
all right, well, thank you.
Any other questions or concerns about this item? What is the pleasure of council?
Ordinance.
Okay. So the next item on the agenda,
Should we turn them all off?
no, I'll try to back off a little bit.
We might want to go back to our previous settings on it.
Do you know how to do that?
How did you get it on the new settings?
The guy from Woodsies came out.
Yeah, I think so.
Because we're hearing it on almost, I don't know, if I hear it over here
Yeah.
all the time.
Everything.
Oh, you are? I
Yeah, we
don't
just
hear
gotta
that. You hear
just
it?
stay back a little
Yeah,
bit.
yeah, we're hearing it all the time on all the microphones.
Okay, well, we only have a few more items. And I wish I knew how to, if I go back there, I don't know what's gonna happen. I may never come back. All right, so the next item on the agenda is an ordinance authorizing the placement of funds for the Ravenna/Rootstown JED revenue. And this is Community and Economic Development, Ms. Wood?
Yes, we've received our first share of the JED funds. It's roughly about $6,800 that we've received so far. And this would be setting up a fund in order to deposit the money into that fund. I have talked to Dennis, and he would absolutely love for all of it to go into an economic development fund to help further economic development. So I do think that that would be, an incredible thing. We've talked a lot about the needs of our downtown and our central business district and bringing new businesses in. This would be another area where we could help with those things.
Is finance proposed the designated fund?
But we can use the 219 and the RLF funds to put this in. I'm just not sure if we're talking about 10% of the 10% that the city's getting? Or how much we're looking at?
This
Putting-
10% that we received was the 6,800 for March,
Yes,
right?
and we actually got another 6,400
Okay.
since then, so about
So-
12,000 now.
Did the administration have any other plans for that money?
I've not
Mayor, at
heard
this
of
time?
anything.
I mean, it
Currently,
was-
we-
I want it in a separate place so that we can keep track of what we're
Yeah.
doing with it, rather than just in the general fund, because it will
Absolutely.
disappear in there.
Oh, I agree with that.
That's great.
Yeah, so it will be in economic development, but it will be in its own
Yes.
designated
Yes.
index or
Account,
whatever you
yeah,
call it.
yes.
Okay. Any other questions? What is the pleasure of committee?
Ordinance.
Next item is an ordinance to accept a donation in the sum of $93,970.23 for economic development. And this is also community and economic development, Ms. Wood?
Yes, this is exactly what it says. It's accepting the donation of the $93,970 and further, it's to be used to further economic development within the city.
And the source of the money?
The CIC.
Anybody have any questions, concerns?
So is the CIC dissolved now?
No,
Okay, they just, the amount of, is there still money left in the CIC after this amount,
This will be the entire amount
that they?
that will be moved over to us, yes.
Okay.
Pleasure of council?
Ordinance.
ordinance.
Next item on the agenda is an ordinance authorizing a new agreement with Quality IP for IT services. This is from Information Systems. Ms.
All right.
West?
So, some background on this. At the end of last year, we approved the IT position. You know, this is something the city desperately needs, to have an IT human instead of outsourcing a lot of our IT things. I had the opportunity to actually sit in on the interview for a particular candidate, and just amazing as far as thoughts and things that he thought he could be able to do for the city. And they were realistic. They weren't like, he's gonna change our entire system in 2 weeks. That being said, great candidate, however, he has a non-compete with Quality IP. So Quality IP has come to us and said, hey, you can have him, but you need to stick with us for 3 years. The 3-year contract is a 43% savings from our current contract right now. So they were able to go through and take a lot of the human type services, I guess I would say, not the software, not the licensing, all those kind of things, and take those out. So our cost for Quality IP goes from $138,000 to $78,000. I think the one thing about IT is that it's not something that we can just flip a switch and everything's different. I mean, it's gonna take anyone some time to come in and kind of get to know the city, what our needs are. I mean, let's be honest, we don't even know what our needs are as far as technology. To have an IT person help manage the sound system, the YouTube, to help manage our cameras, to help manage our new flock system if we need some support with that. I mean, all of these things, to have a human here is gonna be super helpful.
So Christina,
Yes.
I'm just confused a minute.
Yep.
So are we, when we talked about this IT position, that we had talked about doing a joint thing where we did have Quality IP and then or a service like Quality IP, and we also had somebody who solely worked for the city.
And that's what we're gonna do.
Okay, because the way you were sounding, it was like we were only gonna keep them for 3 years.
So this is just a 3-year contract with Quality IP,
So
where they're saying for the next 3 years.
After that, we could have somebody else, like another Quality IP, but maybe not Quality IP. Okay,
Yeah.
because I'm like, whoa, one person in the
No.
city, there's no way that is gonna work. We
No.
tried that one time, and it was overwhelming on that individual, and There's so many components, yeah.
So Quality IP would provide the backup for this person if the person's not available, if it's something beyond. My understanding is all the tickets are gonna go to our IT person first, and they're gonna decide whether it's something they can handle or if it's something Quality IP needs to handle. This person has worked within our city before and kind of knows how everything operates. So, I'm confident, and I know management, in talking with them, they're confident that this person's absolutely able to do the job. And just moving away from outsourcing all of our services to having a human and then outsourcing what we need to outsource. The other thing is this person shared during the interview that he's aware of different grants and different opportunities to also save some monies possibly in the future as far as our IT services go. So, yeah, in order for us to move forward with possibly hiring this person, I mean, he's ready to go. Quality IP knows that he wants to work here. We have to tweak our contract with Quality IP. So we wanted to bring it to council because I know this is something that, we've talked about as our IT process and the procedure for quite some time.
So a few other details. The contract we have currently with Quality IP is already a 3-year contract that will end in July. The term includes a 60-day termination clause. So if we wanted to, I'm not saying that's the desire, that would be your desire, to cancel the contract, we don't have much time.
Yeah.
We have days to make that decision. Now, you threw out some numbers, but I actually compared the two contracts, and I don't know if something came up since the last contract, but I have a reduction of only 40% because last contract was $130,214. I don't know where those other, we might have signed another contract with
Tammy,
them.
yeah.
But
Was
from
it-
'21 till now, some of the costs have risen. We've added some things on, some different encryption.
Well, we have to
things.
add things on because we have to agree to any kind of
Yeah,
increase.
so that comparison, the 43% savings is from the most recent invoice that we spent, what we're spending.
Well, and then
right
there's
now.
another factor too. The old contract had a $10,000 municipality discount, which this one does not.
No, because we're not spending enough money to be eligible for the $10,000 discount. Correct.
Well,
Yeah.
okay, I'm just
So-
pointing out the differences.
Yeah.
And look, I haven't had time because we just got the contract today.
I will tell you, the one big difference that I noticed was that the remote IT help services was $9,336 last time. And with the new proposed contract, it's $1,500. Because the IT person is going to be taking
Well,
over a lot of that.
yeah.
So that's a huge savings as well.
Yeah, but my problem is I didn't have time to review, and I'm not seeing necessarily a one-to-one correspondence with some of these services. Some of these things are called something different. And I think, I'm just saying there needs to be more time to
Sure.
sort through what
And it
we were
sounds like-
getting and what we're getting in the new
Well,
contract.
from what you said, it sounds like that after this contract is up in July, we have to keep them 3 more years, correct?
Well,
and-
that's
and we
what they're
could-
proposing.
But if there's a clause there that you just stated, so that, you're talking about a 60-day contract, or 60-day
That-
to get out contract, that's not gonna work, because if we have to keep that individual, or keep Quality IP for 3 years if we hire this individual.
Well, no, we have 60 days before the end of this current contract if we're going to,
It
if we're going to
automatically
let Quality
renews.
IP know we're not using them.
There's
It
a
automatically
current
renews.
contract and a proposed new contract, so there's 2 contracts. We're looking at getting out of the one that we're currently in to accept
The new
the
contract.
current,
And-
or
and-
the-
Okay,
accept the new one.
gotcha.
And it's really a catch-22 because we don't really know what, like, if we were to do a bid or do anything, we don't really know what we need as far as IT services. That's kind of why we wanted an IT person. We need someone that's going to be able to problem solve those things. We put that contract with Gary Bishop, was it last year or the year
Oh,
before?
it was
Because
a couple
3 years
years
ago,
ago.
because there was some like IT stuff that we weren't familiar with to put in place. So in order to really have a comprehensive idea of what our city needs as far as technology goes, we need someone that works for the city to determine those things.
Well,
And we
so,
don't, like I said, we don't wanna overwhelm him too.
Yes.
Because we need, and especially Quality IP has, the experience with what we have set up to this point. Everything that we've gotten to this point has been with Quality IP. So I think it would be, it would be damage if we did not use Quality IP. There's too much at stake right now.
Well, look, the last time we approved the 3-year contract, we did so with the understanding, certainly not a written understanding, that the next time we did this, we would go out to bid.
But things have changed now since they're hiring a new
Well,
person.
look, and so to me, this is a very convoluted situation. And I think we need to be very, very careful, because while it is true, we need somebody to be the guardrail against the consultant we hire. We're hiring somebody who currently works for the company, and so one of the things I think we need to consider, council needs to consider, is if we go in this direction, we need to have a clear understanding with this employee, because this will be an employee of the city, that they're not getting any compensation from Quality IP whatsoever. That would be a complete conflict of interest.
And I don't
Yeah,
believe
and
that that's,
Rob, I talked to Heather today, and she made it very clear that there will be a definite definition of 2 weeks' notice for that company, and then the contract with
Well,
us.
yeah, I understand, but what I'm saying is I believe what council should consider doing is having the new employee sign a document, a notarized document clearly stating that he will not accept any compensation from Quality IP. That's all I'm saying. Now,
I think that could be handled appropriately with our human resource director, our law director, and our mayor. I think that they can make it very clear to a future employee what is allowed and what is not allowed, and I'm sure they probably already have. So that's,
well, I just,
employment is not what council needs to be concerned about. We can leave that up to the administration.
and I will say during the interview, I didn't hear any intention. I mean, this person shared some really great things that he wanted to do and wanted to see for the city, and he did not have any intention of doing both.
okay. Look, I'm just trying to
Yeah.
set the
I-
rules here for what we should
Well,
be
and
expecting
also
from a new
typically
employee in a
with-
situation like this.
Right, but with
Because this is
Quality
not-
IP, I would say most organizations are not gonna make an employee trying to leave sign a non-compete clause if they're still gonna pay them anything. So even coming from the other side, I don't see with a non-compete clause being signed by the employee and Quality IP and him coming to work here, I don't see Quality IP trying to offer any compensation.
Well, I mean, there's
That's the
a
point of the-
definite reason why they could be offering him compensation, and
Well,
that's
no,
to
it's the
keep
non-
us in business with them.
No,
Well, let's put that aside, okay? Because I don't disagree
Yeah.
with you. I'm just making suggestions from my perspective. Ultimately, council will make the decision. So, Brian, you know what my next concern's going to be, right?
Bidding?
Yeah.
Well,
This is
before we
clearly
get
above the threshold for bidding, regardless of the fact that we had an agreement, although not written, that we would bid this out anyway.
Can I really just quickly finish?
Oh,
kind of
I'm
like-
sorry. I
And
thought
then
you
we
were.
can go on and talk about bidding, I promise. Tammy and I and Brian met before council tonight to kind of look, and we tried to compare both contracts to see like what went, and it's like reading Chinese unless you are a qualified IT person to know what. So we did kind of try. So, I challenge you guys, take a look at this. I mean, see. And when you really look into it, you see that most of the things remaining on this list are services or licensing. It's software or licensing. It's not that human interaction. We're taking all that away. So I just wanted to point that out, that this is like our VPN, it's our cybersecurity training, it's our Sophos Intercept, it's our ticketing system, which we absolutely need, and we'll be using that even with an IT person. So those are the things that are remaining in this contract.
There was, in the wording of the new contract is interesting, because it says, and I understand it, because I think this is more IT speak, but in the second paragraph, it says, as we transition from outsourced to co-managed. And I find co-managed a very interesting term.
Well, it's IT speak for they're working together.
Right, well,
I mean,
that's what
really is what it
that's what I
is.
assume,
Yeah.
but we really are still outsourced when it comes to Quality IP.
And a lot of municipalities and a lot of county agencies operate this way.
Okay.
Yeah.
I know that,
Yeah.
I'm just talking about the language involved. The last statement, which may speak to what your concerns were with comparing the contracts, is it says the Microsoft 365 will remain separately billed as a pass-through expense. So I'm wondering if there are other related IT expenses not in their contract that we will be paying.
That's also a monthly bill that we pay, and we have always paid that separately.
Oh, okay,
Yeah, yeah.
okay. That answers the question.
Thanks, Tammy.
Thank you. Glad you're here.
Yes.
All right, so do you have more?
I'm good, unless anybody has any questions on that.
So I do, look, someday you're gonna hang a name tag on me or something about bidding, right? Because that's my constant go-to. So I just don't know, how do we speak to that? The fact that this is well above the threshold, because it's well above the threshold for 1 year, but it's for 3 years.
I was not here when we all discussed this before, but I certainly think we could probably go back to Mr. Semino and see if we can get a little more clarification there. But what else can we do to make everybody comfortable with
Yeah.
that?
So just so your background, we
Yeah.
did that last time, and
Right.
his suggestion was the next time we go to bid.
Yeah,
So
so
we
if
kick it down the can down the road again, I don't.
If we need to get more clarification, yeah, we'll have to.
and-
Is there, oh, I'm sorry, is there a requirement that professional services contracts have to be bid? And would this qualify as a professional services contract?
Well, that's an interesting question. I invite you to look this up, because I've spent a lot of time trying to figure that out, and I don't have a good answer. The Ohio Revised Code doesn't speak to exceptions for professional services for municipalities. It does speak to counties, but when it does so for a county, it says, except the services of, and it lists the kind of professional services that they do: an accountant, architect, attorney at law, physician, professional engineer, construction project manager, consultant, surveyor, or appraiser. Now, but I would argue, I mean, look, I'm not looking for trouble, you know what I'm saying? It's just the question I think we need to answer. But I would suggest to you, IT services are everywhere. It's not like this is some kind of unique situation, and there are companies like Quality IP all over the place.
Tammy, has the law director looked at this contract that we have yet and given his
We
opinion?
just got this today.
So before council, is he gonna, is he out of town or is he in?
He was here today. I think he's going to be here. I haven't looked at his schedule
So
recently,
I would
but we
strongly
can talk to
urge
him.
him to look at this current contract before it even comes back to council, before we can even, say whether or not we approve it or not. It needs to be approved
Absolutely.
by the law director at that point. But I think this is another special circumstances like the last time. That's just my opinion. We are transitioning to another style of IT, and again, you're bringing somebody on who is familiar, I think, with what's going on. But again, with one person, you're looking at a nightmare. So we need that backup with Quality IT to have that smooth transition. And even then, we still will need, IT service. I know especially with the police department alone, they're constantly using IT, always over there with all of the technology that they have. So, we are just gonna be looking for major disaster, I think, if we do not keep things the way they are, but that's just my opinion.
I think keeping in mind too, that yes, there are a ton of IT services, but Quality IP has already set this up. Like, they work with Cisco, they work with Sophos, they work with all of these, and a lot of those things are expensive and difficult to change. So keeping in mind that we certainly can, and if we have to, we will, but if we have to change an IT provider, that's going to be costly as well. Plus, finding an IT provider that has LEED certification and that can work specifically with the police department is difficult sometimes. So, I mean, just something, certainly if we have to do it, we have to do it. But those are some things that we're up against, that they have it set up for, Envisage is a company I know we use at work. We don't use Cisco, we don't use those things. We work with other places, so we'd have all those new contracts as well. So it'd be a complete revamp, which is kind of why I've been and I don't want to say nagging, like pushing to get the IT person in, because there's so much to IT that we just don't see, especially when it works smoothly. So much of our technology works very smoothly, and then when it doesn't work, obviously, then we're seeing the flaws, but it works so well because of all the systems that Quality IP has put together, so that's all I got.
It is a very complicated situation right now because if it does need to go out to bid, which it may well need to, then we have the issue of the Quality IP put this contract together, and one of these side effects of it is that they're releasing him from his no-compete contract. And so if we go out to bid, that may put a wrench into whether he's allowed to have a no-compete. It might exclude him from doing it if they don't get the contract. Just saying.
Yeah.
I don't mean to add complications to it, but
No,
that's
I
something to
agree. I
think
was
about.
thinking the same thing. I was gonna say the same exact thing, that
Yeah, we would lose him.
We would
it,
probably lose.
yeah.
Yeah, so.
Now, the one thing that I think is negotiable is the 3-year provision. I mean,
possible.
maybe we could kick this down the road a year now that we have, because one of the ideas would we get an IT person to set us up for a possible transition, or at least the bidding process. So, and I don't know what the non-complete peak clause says about the length of time. I assume it's a year, but it's interesting that.
It could be the 3-year.
Could be, but my guess is it's a year, and they just want to lock us in for another 3 years. But that might be a negotiable point with Quality IP.
Absolutely.
They might do it. I mean,
And that might
we
be
can
the
certainly
saving
ask.
Yeah.
way to get out of this, or continue just with a delay.
So,
All right, I didn't want,
No, you're-
that's just the way I am. I
it's
can't
okay,
help
this is,
myself.
you like talking about bids, it's okay, we're good. I'm actually gonna reach out to Mr. Semino
Okay.
and tell him our discussion and get some feedback, and I'll bring it back to,
Let me
I
know
already
if you need
started.
help.
I'll bring it back to council, so that way, because we really need to get this moving forward. We need to have someone here to
Well,
work with our
and one
technology.
thought is, I mean, we're not going to have the same contract we have now with Quality IP. So my suggestion is we cancel the contract with the 60-day clause now, because it's not, we don't want to have that renew, right?
Exactly.
So that's something I think the administration needs to initiate.
I would be a little leery of doing that and running into, we want to make sure we have all our ducks in a row and know all of our answers before we make that decision, because we do not want to be caught without an IT professional service
I agree.
Right.
if something were to go down. We
Rob-
can't
Well,
afford, our
but I
police
mean,
department and
the
fire
da-
department can't
The
afford for something
downside
like
that is that if we don't, they could stick us with the full $138,000 bill.
Then we should have started doing this back in March.
I know.
Rob, we did
start
ask,
it in
and
March.
I mean, we
Oh,
should have started this
okay.
discussion.
this new contract wouldn't take place until July 9th. That's initially what we were talking about. So I think right now, we can clarify that with them, but this might be enough for them to know that we're trying to get
Okay.
something,
All
you
right,
know.
just the
So
technicality
can
that we
find
don't
out
want to get
about
caught off
that,
guard
though.
with.
Yeah.
All right, now,
Ask him and ask.
so how do you guys want to handle this? Do you want to move this on to the May meeting for a vote and hope that everything gets resolved by
I
then?
think we move it forward and let Mr. Semino give us answers ASAP.
Okay, so the pleasure of the committee?
Ordinance.
Ordinance.
Okay. All right, the last item on the agenda, appointment of Ward 2 council member. Personnel Committee, Dr. Calfee.
When we were here last Monday, we talked about the procedure that we were going to follow. We had a deadline of applications. We had a deadline of applications for Friday at 4 o'clock. At that time, we received 6 letters of interest or applications, and we received 1 additional letter of interest, but it was received after the deadline. And so our thinking is that we hold to the statement in the posting which said it needed to be received in the office by 4 o'clock on April 19th. So we do have 6. Originally, we scheduled the interviews for Wednesday and Thursday of this week, the 24th and the 25th. However, an unforeseen schedule change has come up for one of the members, and we're not able to meet on Wednesday. So the question then becomes, do we do all of the interviews in one night, or do we find a second day to do it? With 6 folks to interview, I would suggest that we go with 2 nights, as we had talked about, and do them on Thursday the 25th, and then our second session on Monday the 29th. Monday is a city council meeting night. Most of us should be free. We'll just take a little poll. Are you okay on that Monday night?
I am okay on that Monday.
You are. Matt, you all right?
Monday would be fine for the second night.
We're okay? Okay.
I'm not sure yet. I have to check.
Okay.
We don't have Mr. Moscom here tonight.
Well,
If worse comes to worse,
so what I'll say right now is we will tentatively plan it and hope that both of these folks can get in and get with us. We'll put the pressure on to
That or we start at 4:30
I-
on Thursday and do it all
Our
in one night.
cemetery meeting is scheduled for Tuesday at noon, and I know Mr. Moscom had reached out and said he would not be available for that meeting. So I don't know if he had to leave town,
You mean tomorrow?
the 30th,
Oh,
which would be after Monday. So if he's gonna miss that as well, I don't know if he's out of town for an extended time. I don't know why. But I know he said he wouldn't be available Tuesday at noon.
okay.
So I don't know if that has anything to play with this, but I just wanted to put that out there, that he may not be available at all.
Well, I think all of us feel that it would be best if all members of council could be there for the interviews.
because if they are not there, how are they able to vote
Yeah,
fairly?
and I think everybody agrees with that it's best.
Well, if we have 6 and there's 30 minutes each,
Yeah.
I think we could handle it all on Thursday if we start.
If we need to.
Yeah, I don't think, my opinion on that is, if we do 6 interviews of a half hour each, that's 3 hours, and then we do deliberation after that, which may take a while for final resolution. I would still suggest that we do 4 on the first night, 2 on the second night, with deliberation on the second night for then selection. Now, the question is, whose decision is it what we do? It's our decision, so that's why we just gotta keep talking about it.
Well, if Paul or Cheryl aren't available on Monday, then it's a new point for doing them all on Thursday. anyways, right?
Exactly, that's what I
Well,
said.
unless we go with Friday, unless we go
I
with
can't do
Tuesday.
Friday.
We have until May, I think I told you last week, our 30 days expires on May 1st, did I say, or 2nd? May 1st? Yeah, either the 1st or the 2nd, so.
So it has to be this next week.
Well, Cheryl, you'll know within a few minutes of you getting home whether you're available on Monday night, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so, and then I can call Paul tonight and talk with him. And if that doesn't work, I don't know. What do you think about, Chrissy, what do you think about doing 6 interviews in one night and deliberating?
If we need to, we need to start at 4:30.
Can everybody start at 4:30?
I can start at noon if you need to.
What's the earliest you guys can start? Because I know, Matt, what's the earliest you could start?
Safely, I would say 3:45, 4 o'clock.
Yeah, 4 o'clock's pushing it for me, but I could manage.
Let's
I could do 4:30.
Let's do this. let's seek for Monday, and if that doesn't work out, the trouble I have found with marathon sessions is we want to give equal attention to all of the interviewees. And as we go on for several hours, sometimes the people that are there last may not get the full attention and the full concentration of the people that are interviewing. I'm just saying. 3 hours straight of interviewing, there's a lot of interviewing, but
Well, and the other concern is, we have 6 applicants. We have 6 people on council who are going to vote on this.
That's gonna take some time.
There may not be a clear consensus of who council as a whole wants to pick. And having more time to mull it over would, I think, give the process a little more credibility. I'd hate to think that on Thursday, if we're committed to one night, or you're here until midnight arguing over who you want to
I
pick.
think the last time was very smooth, how we did it, the last couple of times.
Well, the
There's-
last time you had, what, 11 or 12?
Yeah, we narrowed it down and
we
it
had
was
11
very
We
fair.
had 11, only 10 interviewed over the course of 2 nights.
Yeah, and it was very, fair. I think we're making more out of this than with 6 people. I don't think it's
It's
going to
only
be
one more
that.
person
Yeah.
per night than.
Yeah, I just,
I don't think we're making more out of it than we should, so we have a difference of opinion.
We do.
One
That's fair.
thing that is different, and I've pointed this out to some people, the last few times we've had to replace somebody, it's been as a result of an election. So we knew months in advance this was going to be a necessary process and could get started on day one. We weren't able to start this process until the beginning of this month, and now we have to finish it by the end of this month. And we have to include time to allow people to apply. So we've shortened the time period in which this council can do this work from months to, or at least one full month, to like a half a month. And I think that's one of the complicating factors, is we want to get it done before the deadline. So I guess we need to, maybe if you want to take a poll and what the preference is in council?
Let me say what a suggestion is right now and see if we can go with it. The suggestion would be, our first choice will be to try to add the second night on Monday, the 29th. If that is not possible, then we'll go ahead and go with one evening, Thursday, the 25th, and start at 5 o'clock and try to do the interviews on half-hour segments and try to do it all in that night.
Are you bringing the pizza?
No. What do you think? What do you think,
It
Matt?
works.
I'm okay with that,
You're okay
yeah.
to go?
I would hope that we could do it 2 nights, and I apologize, I was
Oh,
wondering
that's
through
good.
it.
It's okay.
But, I hope we could do it over 2 nights, but if we need to do it Thursday, I'm okay with that as well. I will make sure I give the last person as much attention as I do the first person.
Amy, you've already expressed your desire, haven't you?
yeah, I'm happy with both.
Yeah.
Like I said, you gotta do what you gotta do.
Okay, so then I'll try to find out really quickly what Monday night looks like, and Chelsea will be communicating with all of you about what we're gonna do. She'll also be scheduling them in either over the 1 or 2 nights, okay? Any other thing for considerations right there? Oh, you do, in front of you have, the questions we're gonna look through, ask them. They're a variation of what we did last time, and gives you plenty of spots to write your notes. Those are all only for you, the notes and things will be for you. And then we'll do as we did last time, after all the interviews are finished, we'll rank order the choices from each of the people to begin the discussion on who we want to appoint. And so that's what that second sheet is. Okay? All right, with that,
Yeah, that's just, this item was just for discussion. Does anybody have anything else they want to contribute to that particular item?
Thank you.
Okay, that ends the formal agenda, but we did have an issue come up, and this has been ongoing. We have a company, Par Mar Oil Company, that is seeking to transfer a license. Now, normally, we've had renewals and those kind of licenses, and they don't necessarily require council action. unless somebody objects to the transfer of this liquor license, then an official from the city can sign off on it. If someone does object, then we can hold hearings and we can debate whether we want to allow that transfer. So I just wanted to make sure, you know, we're all here. If anybody has an objection, if not, we'll sign it tonight. Okay. Anything else anybody wants to contribute? Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you. Thank you, folks, for joining us tonight.